Hello there. My name's Justin. Today we are going to be talking about oblique strategies. What is oblique strategies? Or are oblique strategies? Well, oblique strategies is a deck of cards that, to quickly sum it up, I would say are prompts that offer creative solutions to solving a dilemma in your work, particularly in creative work. But I don't know. I think maybe with enough creativity, with enough lateral thinking, you can maybe apply these to a bunch of situations. So why are we talking about this? Well, one of the reasons is because these are created by Brian Eno and Peter Schmidt. Brian Eno is someone that whose music I really admire, whose creative methodologies I really admire, which is the reason I got this cards. Peter Schmidt also is an artist, and the two worked together to make these cards. So I got these as a gift a couple years ago, purely because I was interested in them. Over the past couple years, occasionally this box, which has very nice texture, this box has been used in some of my videos and on my live stream. It's good for tapping, good for a little scratching now and then. So if I've perhaps used it before and you wondered what this box was for, this is what it is. This is what the oblique strategies are. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open it up, read sort of the information on the title cards. That'll give a little more detailed story about them and information about how they're used. And then we'll read through some of the cards. We'll pull some. There are over 100 cards here, so we won't pull that many. One thing about this deck of cards is sometimes you'll find that they are very straightforward, very practical, and sometimes they require a bit more out-of-the-box thinking. No pun intended with the box, because they're in a box. Yeah, we'll see how that goes. But let's open it up. Let's see what we have inside here. I really love this box, by the way. I would enjoy just this box even if it didn't come with these interesting cards in it. So let's set this down and pull. I've never done an unboxing kind of video or anything like that, so I feel like I'm very out of my element, but it's nice to try new things. So let's see if I can get these cards out in a quiet way. Hey, that wasn't so bad. We'll see about getting them back in. So here are the cards. All of the cards feature a plain black background, and to give you a preview of what they look like, just a simple white background with black text. So just a black backside and white background with plain black text. And you can see an example of one of the cards here. Retrace your steps. So we'll come back and pull some more example cards, but first I'm going to read. I've got the title card here. Oblique Strategies over 100 Worthwhile Dilemmas, from Brian Eno and Peter Schmidt. These originally published in 1975, so this is a revised edition from 2001. So these have been around, a few decades. These have been around in use for quite some time. Now the title card, the second card here is kind of an explanation, and it's a lot of text that's kind of small. So I'm just going to set these down and I'll read it for you. So it says, These cards evolved from separate observations of the principles underlying what we were doing. Sometimes they were recognized in retrospect, intellect catching up with intuition. Sometimes they were identified as they were happening. Sometimes they were formulated. They can be used as a pack, a set of possibilities being continuously reviewed in the mind, or by drawing a single card from the shuffled pack when a dilemma occurs in a working situation. In this case, the card is trusted even if its appropriateness is quite unclear. They are not final, as new ideas will present themselves and others will become self-evident. So one of the most common ways of using these cards is the second method mentioned, by drawing a single card from the shuffled pack when a dilemma occurs in a working situation. So if I'm in the middle of creating some music and maybe I've reached a point where I'm not sure what to do next, maybe hit kind of a sort of writer's block, or maybe I've been working on something and I'm just not happy with where it is, where it's going, that might be a time that I would pull a card from the deck. Now the final sentence, in this case, the card is trusted even if its appropriateness is quite unclear. There have been times when I've pulled a card and it's kind of spurred me to think about things in a way that I had not before, which I think is really the purpose. And then there have been times when I've pulled a card and just really thought about it, really tried to get outside of my head and look at things from different perspectives, and at the end of the day said, this is useless. There's nothing I can do with this. And you know what? As the person with the final say on what I'm working on, I think that's okay. So we've recently started using these cards on my Twitch stream as a channel points redemption, and they've been quite popular, maybe more popular than I expected. It's not uncommon. There are many streamers that will pull, say, tarot cards and offer an interpretation, or maybe affirmation cards, things like that kind of give you a bit of a creative spur. Now, in the case of tarot cards, what's normally happening is the tarot reader is giving some kind of interpretation as to what the cards mean. Tarot is very esoteric and requires some kind of specialized knowledge. When I use these cards on stream, I choose not to give any interpretation at all. Partly because I feel like if you're using these, you're working on something specific. You've got something specific in mind. So there's no way I could even fathom a guess. And I do think that part of the value in these cards is kind of stretching your creative muscles a bit, and part of the fun and the challenge of it is to find meaning in something that may very well be meaningless, which is maybe part of the fun and challenge of life as well. But let's not go down that road right now. Let's just pull a few of these cards. I'll kind of maybe discuss what my interpretations would be if I was working on music, but I encourage you to think about how you might use these yourselves and see if they give you some value. So let's pull a card here. Alright, this is interesting. So the first card we have is, look closely at the most embarrassing details and amplify them. Look closely at the most embarrassing details and amplify them. Now this is something that I would probably take very literally if I was doing some music, or an ASMR, or even a video like this. What are the most embarrassing details? If I were listening to my own music, I might ask, what's embarrassing about this music? And maybe I'm relying on kind of a tired trope or theme. Maybe I've got a sound in there that's a little played out. Maybe I've used a technique that's a bit overused, and that might get some judgment from my peers. And in this case, I would look at that and I would say, just do more of it, make it bigger. But there's a lot of ways this could be interpreted. Maybe you're working on painting some visual art, and maybe there's some aspect of it that you're not, maybe you feel embarrassed by, and you could literally, just make it amplified, just make it much larger. That's one way you could do it. So look closely at the most embarrassing details and amplify them. I think that's a pretty good example of a card that has a pretty straightforward approach. I mean, what it's saying is very straightforward in a way, but still open to interpretation, and particularly with what kind of work you're doing, that might be part of it. So let's pull another and see what we have here. Now here's one that is a bit more abstract. We have gardening, not architecture. Gardening, not architecture. I like this card a lot, and being a bit of a fanatic of Brian Eno, I've heard him talk a lot about this sort of concept. I'm the kind of person, by the way, that when there's an artist that I get really into, I seek out interviews by that artist, because I love hearing creative people talk about their creative processes. And in this case, Brian Eno talks a lot about music as gardening, or creating music as gardening. And this is an approach that I've sort of taken into my own ambient music. And the way I interpret that is that my approach to making music is very organic, and it involves sort of what I would consider planting the seed of sort of recording a loop of a sound, and then over time slowly manipulating that sound, bringing in filters, perhaps bringing in echo, perhaps adding onto it after some time, and eventually it starts to kind of fade away, but you can still kind of get some use out of it by putting things on top of it, and then it kind of sits in the background, which might be sort of a composting of music, if you will, versus music as architecture, which I would think of as having, very strict parts. I think most popular music is a bit more like architecture. You've got your first chorus, bridge part. There's a lot of the repetition it's very structured. Versus music that is unstructured and just more organic and flowing. Now, I've heard Brian Eno talk a lot about that in regards to music, so that's certainly influenced my thought. But I wonder how you might take that idea into something like visual art, into something like maybe programming and coding. Maybe, generative art is something that I'm also interested in and can imagine that being involved there. I don't know. If you have any interpretations, or if I'd be interested to know what you think about this card. Gardening, not architecture. And this actually is one of my favorites, and I could not have planned to pull that better if I had tried, because I'm just shuffling. So let's do one more. Let's see what we come up with. We'll see what the card has for us. So our next, let's say our final card here. Oh, here's another good one. Here's another one that shows off an interesting aspect. Tidy up. Tidy up. Now this one, much like our first card, I feel like is a lot more straightforward. Our first one, look closely at the most embarrassing details and amplify them. That's really telling you to do something. Our gardening, not an architecture. This is not a statement even, really. It's just a couple of words, a couple of abstract, an abstract kind of thought here that you can interpret. This is straightforward, tidy up. But I think for being so straightforward, it's really open to interpretation. The most literal interpretation, if I pulled this, would be simply to clean up my desk, probably, or my room, my surroundings. In general, I work a lot better whenever I'm in a more clean, tidy environment, but I often find myself not keeping my environment as clean and tidy as I would like. So this might be, this might kind of spur a moment for me to say, okay, I have to clean up this mess. Another way that I could interpret this musically, if I have a lot going on, a lot of layers perhaps, might be to clean it up, maybe add some filtering to kind of maybe things feel musically a bit messy. That happens sometimes. So I could tidy up perhaps the tracks that I'm working on, clean things up, tidy up the frequency spectrum a bit. So I'm pretty happy with these 3 cards that I randomly pulled. Not gonna lie, I was thinking I might have to do some editing to get to a good selection, but these are actually pretty great, and I feel like give a pretty good idea of what the cards are like. But again, there's over 100 of them, and they span a wide range of approaches to dealing with your creative problems. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed. I hope this was interesting. Again, I've never really done a video quite like this, so I hope I'll catch you again soon. Bye for now. Why did I do finger guns? I never do